Hello, welcome to a very dark day at Carrow Road as Norwich City become the most relegated team in Premier League history. What fun, a fifth time since the league was established in 1992. They move ahead of Middlesbrough, Sunderland, West Brom and Crystal Palace as the most relegated club from the Premier League. A defeat to West Ham, not exactly a shock, but the performance was a shocker. A 4-0 defeat, and in a lot of ways this game has highlighted and emphasised the main reasons that Norwich haven't been able to compete in the Premier League this season, the main reasons that they are heading back to the Championship, but unfortunately heading back with their tails between their legs now. It's become pretty grim, and I didn't think we'd at any point be hearing fans talking about Daniel Farke's position being under threat, and I still don't think it is within the club. They've set out their stall on that pretty firmly, and probably still just about at the moment I would fall down on that side as well, with the amount that he achieved and the status that he was held in when Norwich were promoted just over a year ago. You think back to all those glorious celebratory waves that Daniel going around to each stand packed with delirious fans. Frankly, it was a glorious time in the club's history, and to think that relegation would mean he loses his job, I think would be a real sad reflection of the game, I suppose. I don't think that's going to happen, so we probably don't need to talk about that too much. But certainly our live updates at pinkham.com, as they tend to at times like this. This is the third time I've covered relegation while I've been covering Norwich, and it gets pretty dark at these times. People really do take it hard, particularly at the moment when it is so hard to be enthused about football when it's behind closed doors and it's just not the football that you really care about. It's not what we all want to be watching, and it is a tough watch. Unfortunately, it's not over though. They go to Chelsea on Tuesday, back here on Saturday against Burnley. You never get an easy game against Burnley, and then to Manchester City on the final day of the season, who of course are capable of absolutely tearing apart anybody at this level. They, all right, maybe Liverpool had a literal hangovers, but they still gave Liverpool a good thumping after they'd won the title. So that's of course going to be very tough. And when you look at some of the records that are being set here at the moment, that's a 7th consecutive defeat. That is equaling a club record, which was last set in 1995. But including that Sheffield United defeat just before the season was suspended, that's 1 goal and 16 conceded in those 7 games as well. So that's difficult for anyone to stomach, and the players just are despondent. They just want it to be over. Even in the first drinks break today, when it was still 1-0, I think at that point. Let me just check my notes. No, it was 1-0 at that point. But they got together for the first drinks break, and it wasn't, beating of chests and pointing at the badge on the shirt from anyone, not even Farke. They just looked beaten already after that, and it was such a simple goal, that first one. Michail Antonio scored 4 goals here this afternoon and has absolutely dominated Norwich. You can't sugarcoat this in any way. West Ham have cut through Norwich like a hot knife through butter at times today, and set pieces and defensive problems have been highlighted yet again. It's no surprise, but set pieces as where it's come back to haunt them. You look at the statistics for the game: 19 shots for West Ham, 7 on target, and 11 for Norwich, and 2 of those are on target, both of which were reasonably comfortable saves for Lucas Fabianski in goal for West Ham. But also the other relegations from the Premier League with Norwich, they've now conceded 67 goals. That's as many as they did in 2016 under Alex Neil. That is 4 more than they did in 2014 under Chris Hughton and Neil Adams. And they need to concede another 10, which unfortunately, with games against Chelsea and Man City still to come, does still seem a possibility to equal the 2005 Nigel Worthington team, who conceded 77 on their way down. They now cannot match the points totals that the 2005 and 2014 teams got. That was 33. They're now still on 21 with 3 games left to play, so the maths tells the story there. But the defensive issues, quite simply, Jarrod Bowen corner comes in, Issa Diop gets ahead of Mario Vrancic, Antonio volleys in, nice finish, fair enough, Tim Krul with no chance. Mario Vrancic did have a couple of opportunities, Krul did make one brilliant save as well before half time, that Fabianski save from Buendia was before half time as well, but then it was in the first minute of injury time, Buendia fouled Mark Noble to the right of Norwich's box after almost giving away a penalty as well. The free kick just dinked in. I wouldn't say it was anything special. Noble just sort of curls it into the box. Antonio rises between Closer and Godfrey and just nods it down, continues it on its way into the bottom corner, and that's 2-0. There were no changes at half time, but it was 3-0 less than 10 minutes into the second half. Vrancic robbed again. I mean, Mario has given Norwich more of a creative edge in the last two games, but today defensively not good enough at all, and wanted too much time on the ball. But none of the Norwich players have covered themselves in glory today. Tim Closer had a real day to forget, but Noble then plays it through to Antonio. Krul initially makes a good save, but the ball just loops up kindly for him, and he can nod it into an empty net. So that was a bit of a cruel one, the sort of goal you concede when you're in the relegation battle. Hernandez then has a shot saved. Daniel Farke does react with a quadruple substitution, which I think must be the first time in a Norwich competitive game. Ida, Josh Martin, Todd Cantwell and Lucas Rupp all come on for Pukki, Buendia, Hernandez and Stiepermann. But Lucas Rupp, within 4 minutes, finds himself just brushed off the ball by Ryan Fredericks far too easily. Square cross low to the near post, and Antonio reacts quicker than anyone else to prod past Krul from close range. Adam Ida did force an own goal in the 80th minute, but that was disallowed for offside. Cantwell had played Ida through, but he was just offside. So Watford also won. They beat Newcastle, so they're actually 13 points adrift of safety with 3 games left. So it is well and truly done and dusted. They are heading back to the Championship. We already knew that ahead of today. Of course, that wasn't really decided today, and Daniel Farke did say that in his press conference afterwards. He did also dismiss questions about his future, saying that he signed a long-term contract and as far as he's concerned isn't going anywhere. Also said that he expects Andre Duda to remain for the rest of the season, even though he didn't play today, and not return to Hertha Berlin straight away, which there have been some suggestions of in Germany. So we'll see whether that one evolves. But yeah, now it's on to Chelsea, and it's a daunting one, to be perfectly honest, to go to Stamford Bridge with some of the football that they've played this year. You know, chasing that Champions League qualification has certainly shown real capability under Frank Lampard at times this season. If Norwich play like they did today, then it could be another 4-0 scoreline quite easily. It might be time, even with this squad, just to park the bus. But as I said after the Brighton game a week ago, that the post-mortems could soon begin. Well, they're well underway now, and the comparisons are pretty clear. You know, you got West Ham bringing on a £45 million striker midway through the second half in Sebastian Haller. Their position is probably not reflective of how good they actually are when you think about players like Yarmolenko coming off the bench as well. Antonio, of course, did very well. Mark Noble, a very experienced player, but their defence never really looked troubled today, whereas Tim Closer in particular, you've got to add that caveat that he's coming back from a long-term knee injury. It's been a real big ask of him to get stuck in again, but just aerially, they were absolutely dominated by West Ham. You know, when Ogbonna and Diop go forward, they're both big units as well. Souček, he seemed to be everywhere. Their midfielder, who scored a couple of goals recently, and it was him that was denied by Krul. A lovely volley. West Ham, you know, they look like Brazil compared to Norwich today. That sort of cliche way, but I suppose it's no great surprise. The problem is they've now got to navigate those 3 games before we can really turn the page and start thinking about the Championship. I guess the club will try and change the conversation as much as they can. Maybe the incoming transfers will be confirmed fairly swiftly, try and get people's attentions moved forward to what may be to come. But right now, here today, a 4-0 defeat, relegation. You know, Alex Tettey, the third of his career with Norwich. I think that's 3 in 9 seasons, isn't it, for Alex? You could see the pain on his face as he was interviewed on BT Sport, minutes after the final whistle, and it wasn't all dropping to the ground like it was against Brighton, because, as I say, the fate was already sealed. Daniel Farke had said at his pre-match press conference that even if they'd have won the last 4, they probably wouldn't have stayed up. Max Aarons was down on his haunches in the box and had his shirt pulled over his face. I'd imagine possibly sort of fighting back the tears, sort of thing. Couldn't really see from where we were, but just a real despondent group, real down on their luck, and I guess they need to try and put that anger into something. Just try and do whatever they can to park the bus, just grind out points from here. If you can fight your way to a 0-0 draw at Chelsea on Tuesday, that would feel like a victory. But any positives from here on in will be very welcome. Thanks very much for watching. We will turn our attention to the Championship when we're able to. It's clear Norwich are desperate to get to that point, but we can't do it yet. Let us know what you thought of the game in the comments below, and we will see you at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday.